Hey y'all, we're back. Been a bit, but that's fine. Not really going to focus on the blue truck today because I am having some problems with the white truck. I was driving it over Memorial Day weekend, and it's been making some pretty bad sounds. It sounds like I haven't been able to capture it on video on my phone driving around because it's very intermittent, but it sounds like a ratchet strap or a bungee, like hard, fluttering in the wind. And it's not the cover. It's not that. This moves, but that's not what the issue is. What happens is if I'm cruising down the road and I let off the gas, and it's not every time, it's very, very random. But if I let off the gas and kind of coast, I get this weird sort of ratcheting sound. It's very strange. Clearly metallic. I think it's coming from the rear. I've got to check a bunch of things. But anyway, as soon as I tap the gas just ever so slightly, when it is making that sound, and it's like until I tap the gas, then it stops. So it's clearly something the driveline, transmission, drive shaft, U-joints, rear end, brakes, axles, whatever. So I already, over the weekend, kind of climbed underneath of it and made sure everything was tight and good. Then I took it out into town and threw a U-joint, so that was fun. I thought, man, maybe that was the problem. Because when it started doing, I did get underneath of it, and I saw the U-joint cups had kind of separated on the differential. So I kind of pushed everything back together and tightened everything up, and turns out the U-joint failed. I should have just replaced it, but whatever. So parking lot, rip it all apart, drift it back together, on I go. And I thought, well, maybe that was the problem. But on the way home from that parking lot, I heard the sound again. So clearly it wasn't the problem. Anyway, I'm probably not gonna be able to get you to hear the sound, at least not on this video. Maybe if I go out driving around, I can capture it at some point, I don't know. But what we can do is go through it a little bit. So we know the U-joints are good. I don't have any leaky seals on this truck or anything in the rear, but I am going to change the rear diff gear oil. Needs to be done anyway. I checked it when I built this truck and it was pretty thin, so probably should have done it then, but whatever, here we are. So I'll do that. We can take a look underneath again. I'll check the rear brakes, pull the drums apart, just have a look at them. And the other thing we can do is drain the trans fluid. That trans was fresh when I built the truck, so who knows? It almost to me sounds like the parking pawl is like dropping as I'm driving. Who knows? It could be a solenoid in the trans. I don't really know. It's loud and it shouldn't be doing it. That's what I can tell you. So anyway, let's get underneath of it and drain the gear oil. I have to figure out what rear I have in here so I can get the right gasket for the diff cover. And then from there, we'll do the brakes and take a look at what else might be happening. All right, so I knew it was a 10 bolt. I just want to make sure I get the right gasket. This is some mud from when I was out trying to get the noise to happen. I went into a orange grove and picked up a bunch of crap. Anyway, we're going to get this guy opened up. I am confident it does not look like it's supposed to inside. I did already check all my shock extenders. In fact, I did have to replace some bolts, but that clearly is not the problem because it's still making the sound even after I've replaced the bolts. So anyway, rather than walk through this thing like I've done a million times already, I think we'll just open this guy up and drain it. So let me just get this stuff just out of the way. My hand broom. And then we'll open that cover up. Let me get a pan. And yes, I know I have a lift. Actually, we have two lifts. But here we are on the ground because blue truck. And I don't feel like moving 2 cars just to put this thing up on a 4-post. Alrighty, let her rip, tater chip. Now we got brackets and stuff bolted onto the diff cover, but that's fine. You just get them out of the way and go about your business. Little fella, there you go. Just bend them up a little. Perfect. And she's a wee bit crusty. If you've never pulled a diff cover off or never had a diff apart, it is the absolute worst smelling gear oil. Gear oil is gross. It's the worst smell to come out of a car, no question. Good news, this is not really leaking. I think it's just old and dry. So I'll probably need a pry bar. Yeah, for sure. I think this one was just gooped on instead of gasket, which is fine. Here's a pry bar. Roll, hey, go pry bar my hand now. Yeah, probably need a hammer too. Yep. Good news. Not putting tools away comes in handy sometimes. Good knit. I mean, it's definitely not leaking. It can't, because I can't even get the frickin' cover off. Oh, oh, oh. Gross. Now gear oil is all over the place. Well, there really wasn't a whole lot in there. I think when I checked it, I'm pretty sure it was fine. I wouldn't, oh, there is a gasket on there. I wouldn't mind finding something wrong inside here. We might just jack this up and spin her around and have a look. I've not had this diff open since I bought the truck, so. But it's real thin. Definitely needed to be gone through. Man, I wish this truck was a posi. Should just do it now. But no, it's fine. I do see some metal in there. Maybe I do need a posi. I might need a rear end here, folks. She's a little bit glittery. And it is, I might have done this to myself though. The gears look pretty good, but not in there. So let's put this thing up in the air, put it in neutral. I can get to spinning this thing around and really have a good look at it, but it's very possible that my noise is coming from back here somewhere. It's definitely driveline because, like I said, I can get completely off the throttle, and then when I hear the noise, if I just barely touch the gas, it puts a little torque back into the driveline and stops the noise. I'm hoping it's here and not the transmission. I really don't want to pull the transmission, but I guess if I have to, I will. I do have some metal in here. Like I said, it was pretty thin, so all right, let me get this thing up in the air and get this mess cleaned up, and we'll get to spinning that around. Okay, so you can see in the diff cover exactly where the line was right here. It was a little low, not terribly, but you can also though see how much metal there is in the oil. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this might be where my noise is coming from. Let's have a look at the oil pan in a second here, but we'll get back underneath and spin the diff and see what happens. Okay, let's take a look at what we got now. Yeah, there's lots of metal in that. No chunks quite yet, but when metal starts like that, usually means chunks will come soon. Oh yeah, definitely my problem right there. That whole thing is spinning around and the pin's dropping. That is sloppy. There's my problem. I guess I shouldn't have wished for a posi, huh? Yeah, that's pretty dang on sloppy stuff right there. Funny thing is, this gear oil is so old it doesn't even smell like gear oil. I never had that happen before either. But this is definitely an issue. There's an insane amount of metal coming out of this. Let me bring in here, you can have a look at what I'm seeing. I don't know how well you could see that when I was messing with it when the camera was back a little further, but have a look here at this gear and have a look down here at the bottom of the pin. That gear is jumping all around. The pin's loose and spinning actually from time to time. I don't know how well you can see that or not. Ouch. So you can see that top gear jumping around. Now you can really see as I rock the tires back and forth. Look how loose that is. That whole pin is pivoting. Of course, as I screw with it, the diff continues. There it goes. Look at that pin. Look how much that thing just popped out. See that? No bueno, senor. That's my problem right there. That's where the noise is coming from. I bet you I could actually walk that whole pin out if I wanted. All right, well, guess it's time to do a little research and order me a new center section, I suppose. I don't know. I gotta figure it out. Stay tuned. All right, I have come to a conclusion what happened. This bolt is supposed to hold this pin in, and that bolt sheared off. Basically, the nose of this bolt is basically like a stub. It's not threaded, so it goes into this pin and it's sheared. So at some point the rear kind of froze up, the pin sheared, or the bolt sheared, and then the pin started dropping out like this. Now the pin is not always dropped like this. I can push that back in. Right now I can't, but I have been able to since I've had the rear open. So the pin pushed into the center, the carrier, but occasionally, and this is why I couldn't get it to do to make the noise consistently, but occasionally that pin would fall out. And if I got the pin to fall out right when I came off the gas, if everything aligned, the pin would be dropped when the diff is spun the other way. And this pin, you can see this groove. Oh, see there, the pin just pushed in. But there's a groove in that pin that lines up with the pinion gear in the front, and that pinion gear is trashed. You can see that on the face. And that's because this pin would pop out of the carrier and hit the pinion gear in the front, and that's the noise that I would hear, is this pin in the center of the carrier bouncing around on the pinion gear. Not supposed to do that. Definitely not supposed to do that. So let me see if I can get this tire to stop spinning. So I just jammed. Remember, this is an open diff, right? So you have to get one wheel to stop spinning to get the diff to actually spin. So as I spin this around, you can see some pretty bad wear on the top and bottom. Specifically, I think if I keep spinning here, you can also see that the pin does drop out this end and was doing the same thing. So it started dropping on both, and that pin's not supposed to spin. See how that center pin is moving and spinning? That bolt on the opposite side of that carrier is supposed to hold that in. Clearly it's not. And clearly this thing doesn't hold that wheel. But okay, now spin this. There. Now, as that pin dropped out just now, you saw that happen. There's a ton of wear up here around this whole thing, and this gear is ridiculously loose because of that. So now you can see the bottom, that pin is out. If I spin this around the rest of the way, you can see it spinning inside the housing too. It's not supposed to spin at all. So this pin is rotating this way as the diff is rotating up and down that way. It's not supposed to, because that bolt's broke. And if I get it to the right spot right here, you can actually see the head of the bolt still in the pin. So yeah, junk, absolute junk. And here you can see the wear on the end of the pin. It's really bad. That's where all the metal's coming from. But as I spin this around, because that pin is sticking up out of the center carrier, it's going to hit the pinion gear. Listen. There, boom, stopped cold. Now it won't turn because that pin is up against that pinion gear. So yes, total and complete junk. One thing that I mentioned that the oil that's here doesn't smell like gear oil, and it was really thin. I think some person before me put motor oil in the diff or very, very thin gear oil, but it doesn't smell like gear oil. So I'm going to go with somebody put an old 1030 in there, something stupid, instead of gear oil because they didn't know or they didn't have it. It's whatever. My bearings, because of the metal, are probably smoked. I've already spoke with a guy, contacted him locally. He rebuilds rears. So for a pretty reasonable amount of money, I am just going to take the whole rear end out of this truck, which I just recently did to do an axle flip. You can see that this rear is on top of the springs instead of the bottom like it is from the factory. And the reason for that is because when you put the rear on the top of the springs, you get a lowered truck. So that's what I did in the rear, and then I put springs in the front. I should do spindles, but whatever. Anyhow, I'm going to take the whole rear out and give it to that guy, and he's going to give me a new one when I give him some money. And I'll have a Yukon Posi. I found out also this is a 372 gear. Not great. So there's numbers here on the edge. It was built in January of 1982. The truck's an 83. 82 is the year I was born. So anyway, yeah, it's junk. And I can't drive it anymore. I could probably weld that pin in and actually be okay, but no, we're going to put a posi in this. It deserves it. I'm also going to go from a 273 to a 308. If I go 323 or 342 or 373 gear, I'm going to smoke the tires even more than I already was with the 273. So the truck has like 3 times the power now that it did from the factory. A ton of torque. I'd like a little bit more low end just for the fun, but I also get 20 miles per gallon and cruise at 80 miles an hour at like 1,000 RPM. So anyway, that's going to change a little bit, but I'll still have fun, and with a 308 gear, I'll still get a pretty decent fuel economy and increased launch potential. So yeah, that's what's happening. So stay tuned when I get all that sorted out with this local guy, and probably, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks, maybe he'll have the rear done. Until then, thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff. Talk soon. Thanks. See ya.